This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 6 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. When Viltrox reached out to me about reviewing their $550 gram 16mm f1.8 and Nikon Z mount, I was more than happy to do so, and happy to be sponsored by them. The company has put out 2 exceptional lenses over the last year or two with which I've had personal experience, their 75 and 27mm f1.2s in Fujifilm XF mount, so I was curious how they'd handle a full-frame, super wide angle, especially as my urban landscape work has increasingly called for one. Still, Viltrox has had no input to this video, no advance preview of it, and the views expressed herein, as always, are absolutely my own, as they should be. Thanks, Viltrox, for respecting those boundaries. Many years ago, a stupid college kid with the CB radio handle of Sidewinder, right, a heat-seeking missile for f***'s sake, was driving home for the semester with a couple of classmates at even more stupid, very high and illegal speed. But he was an extremely competent driver. He did take care of his vehicle, and he was in constant contact with truckers and other drivers with CB radios back when this was a community keeping everyone aware of where the bears were, as in Smokey the Bear, that is, the police. His confidence began to erode when he noticed what appeared to be a growing ball of dust in his rearview mirror. That confidence was shattered when he recognized the flashing red and blue lights of a state trooper's cruiser. He only truly understood how foolish he'd been to think that something like this could never happen to him when he rolled down the window of his car, now pulled over to the side of the road, to face the state trooper who'd walked up to it, full Sheriff Buford T. Justice style, who smiled at him and asked, "How you doing, Sidewinder?" Which is a bit like the rest of the camera and lens industry, ignoring the evolution of Chinese lens manufacturer Viltrox. They do so at their peril. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for 3 Blind Men and an Elephant, and I will just cut to the chase. Viltrox's 16mm f1.8 and Z mount, matched to the only Nikon full-frame body we had on hand, the 24-megapixel ZF, proved to be very rewarding for the kind of work we do as street photographers. That is, in this instance, urban landscape, but it also worked well, to my pleasant surprise, for classic street work. Even wide open, viewed at normal image sizes and viewing distances, sharpness and contrast popped, and chromatic aberration was very well controlled. Autofocus, I should add, was fast and silent. But I didn't want to shoot in a vacuum. The lenses we had in-house closest to the Viltrox in any mount were my own Leica Super Elmar M 18mm f3.8, a manual focus only $2,000+ lens used, Sigma's $600 new 17mm f4, and Panasonic's $900 new, as I'm recording this normally $1,000, Lumix 18mm f1.8s. But since virtually all of my super wide shots are typically done between f5.6 and f8, the sweet spot for what we do, I chose to limit my schlepping by leaving the Lumix at home. I also reduced my schlep and eliminated a truly unfair 37 megapixel advantage by leaving my Leica SL3 at home and bringing instead the tiny, if controversial, don't get me started, all a lot of nothing, 24 megapixel Lumix S9 we have on long-term loan, along with an M2L adapter for the Super Elmar 18. Guess what? In the real world, shooting real things at real shooting distances and real sweet spot apertures, and then displaying and viewing them at, say it with me now, normal sizes and viewing distances, the Viltrox more than held its own against the Super Elmar for sharpness and chromatic aberration. Giving up, on the other hand, a little bit to the Leica when it comes to distortion, which is extraordinary and the first of several surprises. The next thing that surprised me was that under critical, stupid high magnification, the Sigma, released just this past year, bested both lenses for sharpness and displayed virtually no distortion, both at each lens's respective maximum apertures and when all three were stopped down to f5.6 or so. But maybe it shouldn't have surprised me, because the Sigma is one heck of a lens. Where the Viltrox really surprised me, however, was wide open, giving me additional creative choices on the street that I actually used. And, of course, not to my surprise, those 2 extra stops of light gathering, courtesy of that maximum aperture of f1.8, proved especially useful at night, allowing me to shoot handheld at 1/15 of a second, f2, ISO 500, 31 floors above the street of New York instead of at ISO 2000, which does make a difference to image quality and dynamic range. Although, with all of this said, I really did miss the 61 megapixels of my SL3 and its autofocus interface, and I am definitely going to have to think harder about when and how I use my manual focus only M11. The one party trick the Viltrox brings to the table, which, as far as I'm concerned, makes the company appear to be growing even faster in the rearview mirror of the big boys, beyond build quality, all but identical to the Pro Series lenses. I'm not sure why this one was not labeled Pro. Perhaps, as with Leica's naming conventions, it is a function of maximum aperture. It is the introduction of a color LCD panel in the lens barrel, exceptionally legible and useful at that. It basically screams, we're not just me too. Still, the Viltrox is notably bigger and heavier than all of the super wide primes I've mentioned. This does matter to me on the street. Like almost all fly-by-wire lenses, there are no hard stops. Doesn't matter to me at all for this lens and for our use cases. And when the depth of field is sufficiently deep, the electronic depth of field scale presented on the panel becomes non-intuitive. You simply don't see the far and near limits of depth of field within the panel, and that struck me as just odd. Although this is another no big deal to me, as I would shoot this lens in autofocus mode all the time. Of course, many of us will prefer zooms, and for those of us who are so inclined, Nikon does have you covered. Think $997 for their 450 gram 17 to 28 2.8, $1,147 for their 485 gram 14 to 30 f4s, and $2,500 for their 650 gram Nikkor Z 14 to 24 2.8s, reduced by $400 as I'm recording this to just over $2,100 at B&H. I wish I'd had the time to test these for you as well, but with apologies, it was just infeasible. I actually prefer a super wide prime to a zoom anyway. Not only because I tend to prefer primes generally, but because I just don't shoot much beyond my favorite full frame wide angle focal length of 24 millimeters. And I see no reason to carry the extra weight or size or pay the extra money or accept the compromises in image quality a zoom offers when I do. Although about that, image quality has become less and less of an issue for zooms since they have really improved by leaps and bounds over the last, half decade or so. And I really am not in a position to tell you how good Nikon's ultra-wide zooms are. I will have to change this situation at some point. Unfortunately, the widest Nikkor Z Prime on offer is their $950 505 gram 21.8S, which, like all of their 1.8S primes, is fabulous. I've no doubt that were Nikon to build a 16 1.8S, it would take the crown not only in the Z mount, but quite possibly the industry. But here's the thing. They don't. The only other autofocusing super wide primes in Z mount out there of which I'm aware, as of this recording at the end of May 2024, appears to be the $369 810 gram even wider 14mm f2.8 twins from Samyang and Rokinon, which I have not tested either, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention them to you. Then again, I suspect that many, if not most of us contemplating a prime this wide and fast will be interested in how it performs for astrophotography. Of course. Claudia and I don't do astrophotography, and we therefore did not test it for that use case. But I can recommend to you the work of YouTubers Christopher Frost, Dustin Abbott, and these two guys have come to my attention only recently, astrophotographers Richard Trotty and Adrian Alford. They do a good job. I'll wrap it up this way for now. On the one hand, really, holy crap, at the same sweet spot aperture, the Viltrox essentially keeps up with a more than 3 times the price. It's actually sharper. The used legendary manual focus only Leica M mount, Super Elmar M18, which is adaptable to a Z mount body. The Viltrox does this while also providing excellent autofocus performance and an additional 2 stops of light gathering ability, making this result all the more noteworthy. On the other hand, although not available nor adaptable for the Z mount, in the larger scheme of things, Sigma's far smaller and lighter at only 225 grams or so, only $50 more expensive, but 2 stops slower, 17mm f4 bests the Viltrox under critical, stupid high magnification, which won't matter to most of us most of the time. But it may matter to those of us who print big, invite our viewers to peruse the entire frame at closer than normal viewing distances, and or crop the crap out of an image using sensor resolution to replace longer glass. But then again, only if the subject matter of the image warrants that kind of effort. It does matter to me for my urban landscape work. Which doesn't change the fact that in the real world, the Viltrox has surpassed a legend and is now chasing one of the best and newest lenses from one of the world's best modern lens companies. If it isn't there quite yet, Viltrox is beginning to remind me, actually, of nothing so much as Sigma back in 2013, when that company made a quantum leap beyond anything it had done before with the introduction of its incredible for the time 35mm f1.4 DG HSM art lens, that is, for DSLRs. It put manufacturers on notice that this was a company to watch both in terms of image quality and build quality, offered at an extraordinary price point. That first lens, however, was massive, and there would be more like it. But with its latest lenses, Sigma has now proven that it can keep up with OEMs for image quality and ever smaller, lighter lenses at a fraction of the price. Like Sigma earlier in its evolution, Viltrox is a third-party lens manufacturer that offers image and build quality approaching that of OEM lenses, sometimes equaling them, yet prices them far more aggressively. And, for now, is willing to make their lenses as big as they need to be to achieve their objectives. Which, to be fair, are much smaller and lighter than the Sigma DG-HSM art lenses of yore, and less expensive too, especially when adjusted for the crazy inflation of the past few years. Still, to someone as critical as I am, this full-frame 16 1.8 is not as optically remarkable as their pro-branded APS-C coverage 75 and 27 f1.2s, nor as compelling physically as the Sigma. But Sigma is not yet making full-frame Z-mount lenses. f4 really is too slow for astrophotography, and the Sigma does not give one the creative options that the Viltrox's 1.8 maximum aperture does, nor the ease of use that comes with that color panel. For most of us, most of the time, this Viltrox is simply a killer value. Consider then this 16 1.8 to be one additional data point suggesting that Viltrox is nothing if not ambitious. I suspect we are only a lens or three away from Viltrox clearly putting everyone on notice, and I am looking forward to seeing what they do next. 135 1.8, anyone? This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 6 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comment section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video call via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.